I used to hate the horror genre, be it movies or games. I remember being utterly terrified of the mummy when I was 5 years old and couldn't sleep with the lights off for months. The scene when he turns into sand and sneaks into people's rooms? Oof, nightmare fuel. I still can't rewatch that movie to this day. It was only a few years ago when I took a dive into Japanese horror movies from the 2000s that I began conquering my fear and started to understand the appeal of the genre, the tension, the mystery, the adrenaline, the symbolism. Fast forward to today, and I'm a huge horror fan, but needless to say, I missed the boat when the original Silent Hill 2 made splashes in 2001. I did not, however, miss the opportunity to play the Silent Hill 2 remake this year. Call me a glazer, but Silent Hill 2 Remake is easily not only a Game of the Year contender for 2024, but will be enjoyed as a beloved modernization of a horror story classic. That being said, Silent Hill 2 Remake isn't the scariest game I've ever played, nor necessarily the most fun horror game I've ever played, but what makes it all click together is its atmosphere, storytelling, and pacing that pushes it to the peaks of the genre. We play as our man James Sunderland, who receives a mysterious letter from his wife who passed away 3 years ago, asking him to find her in the town of Silent Hill. James ventures into the fog-covered streets where the nightmare slowly unfolds. We meet a few other individuals who also find themselves in Silent Hill for some reason, and learn about their journey and reasons for being here over the course of the game. On the gameplay side of things, Silent Hill 2 Remake plays very similarly to other third-person survival horror games as of late. Think of the remakes of Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, and you're good to go on the controls. Combat-wise, weapons and melee hits all feel solid for the most part. You'll be dodging and boxing in melee range quite a bit as ammo is expectantly scarce. Guns feel good to shoot, and resources feel balanced in a way where you'd want to consider between running and fighting in some of the tougher sections. The combat is fun in the first half, but the loop starts to get stale entering the latter half of the game. This is because enemy variety is where I think Silent Hill 2 Remake is at its weakest, with only around 4 or so common enemy types. The dev team do an admirable job at mixing up their hiding places and compositions throughout different environments to keep things as fresh as long as possible, but there were still too many boxing matches with the same pairs of legs for my taste. I'd personally prefer if there were fewer encounters and instead have the game focus on its stronger elements, such as the exploration. Without straying too far away from the original game, I think they successfully modernized the combat to the comfortable third-person shooting we are familiar with nowadays, but just as combat was never the focus in the original game, here too it is fun but not extraordinary. What makes Silent Hill 2 Remake so engaging to play though is not the combat, but the immersive elements that keep you glued to these haunted locations. The game on both an aesthetic level and gameplay level keeps you attentive to your surroundings. Enemies hide within the environment, encouraging you to spot them before they get to you first. Resources and puzzle pieces require you to observe and search the many rooms, shelves, and corners in order to progress. There is little hand-holding and pointing you where to go, refreshing in this age of gaming where objective markers clutter the screen. Navigation is handled by a map that James continually updates, giving you clues on where to explore and what areas to maybe inspect more closely. The minimal use of UI elements allows the player to really focus on the beautifully haunting spaces, which is then punctuated by Silent Hill's amazing sound design. The pipes and floorboards creaking, the foggy ambiance, and poignant OST tracks wrap the game in a package that is both tense but hard to put down. Pacing 2 is one of Silent Hill 2's strong points in how it spaces out combat, exploration, puzzles, and story development. It allows for quieter moments for you to take in the environmental storytelling, but then quickly ups the tension appropriately during more combat-focused sections. I think they really nailed the balance here, always feeding you new content at a pace that encouraged me to keep playing to the next save point despite whatever horrors lied in front of me. As for the puzzles, well, the Silent Hill series has a bit of a reputation for some obtuse puzzle logic, but I found the normal puzzle difficulty setting to be challenging without being too cryptic. Clues were sufficient enough to keep the puzzles from being too frustrating, but when I cranked it up to the hard puzzle setting on a second playthrough, yeah, some of these get pretty ridiculous. The puzzles also feel a little arbitrary in how they fit into the story. For example, an early puzzle has you inserting a certain record into a jukebox that contains a key. but it doesn't make too much sense why a key would be inside the jukebox in the first place, which is slightly immersion breaking. Nevertheless, the puzzles still do a good job at facilitating the pacing of the game and encourages players to be observant of the environment. Where Silent Hill 2 Remake and the original shine brightest though, is not the moment-to-moment gameplay nor the puzzles, but the story and atmosphere. Silent Hill 2 has a banner of a narrative, and one that is not told just through exposition, but felt through the environment and motifs in gameplay. Without diving into spoilers, enemies are not just designed to be as scary as possible, but are deliberately constructed with the larger narrative in mind. Environments are not just backdrops for the action, but share insights on the crumbling psyches of the people who find themselves in this haunted town. The fog is back, and the reduced visibility and eeriness it provides is instantly felt the moment you enter the town. I understand that the OG did it all the way back in 2001, but it's still very impressive to see Blooper Team reimagine these ideas in 2024. Characters have an uncanniness to them with how they speak, possibly a remnant of older video game dialogue, but I felt that the excellent delivery of these somewhat awkward lines added to the eeriness.
This town, there's something wrong with it? And it's not just the fog either.
It's clear the characters you come across don't exactly have their heads on straight, and it's so great how the game's atmosphere, environments, and characters all transform as the story unfolds. I love when video games are able to explore narratives in unique ways that the medium could only allow, and the way the horror experienced through gameplay interweaves with James' story throughout Silent Hill is the game's X factor that makes it more than the sum of its parts. Philosophical references, psychological themes, and a story that recontextualizes itself the further you progress, Silent Hill 2 is not just a romp through a haunted house, but a thought-provoking dive into the depths of human psyche made alive through horrific imagery. Haunting notes, transforming environments, and plenty of foreshadowing, so many of Silent Hill 2's elements work together so well in conveying nuanced ideas about loss and guilt that is viscerally explored through gameplay, boss fights, and player decisions. I really love this story, and think it is the best horror game narrative I've experienced so far. Games such as Resident Evil 7 were certainly scarier, but no other quite matches how Silent Hill 2 uses its horror to add layers of symbolic meaning to a nuanced, dark narrative. This game is not going to click with everyone. There are games out there with better shooting mechanics. There are games that are, in my opinion, much scarier on a visceral level, but there really still isn't any narrative journey quite like Silent Hill 2 in the survival horror space, and I'm so happy I got to experience the narrative that captured so many fans back in 2001. In my mind, this is easily one of the best games of 2024, and a job well done by Bloober Team in reimagining a classic for younger audiences. If you're a fan of the genre, odds are you probably already own this game, but for whoever is still on the fence, I can't recommend this game enough. If you made it this far in the video, thanks so much for sticking it out to the end. And hey, if you'd like to see more gaming related content, a like and subscribe would go a long way in helping me bring my passion for games onto YouTube. See you on the next one.